So the whole thing when you're talking about the pelvis, right? People always think about the hips and the sacrum, and I can show you actually. I have my iPad so I can do this, but what people don't realize, it's the direction of the tailbone. So when you're in the pelvic girdle, which again is just picture yourself giving birth. I mean, you know what I mean? The sit bones are there. Now again, because Austin's wearing a diaper, I can really go in there and stuff. This is not something I would do with Jonathan or Michael or Patrick type thing. So, but what I'm looking to do is not only... What? You're on your own, dude. So when I rotate, it's not like this with fixed hands. It's the fingers go more to the side of the side. But my intention is I'm in around the tailbone, but I want the tailbone to start looking for the table. So move out of the way. So this would be get you going in and out of the car. You know, like if there was a string coming out of your butt. Because most people do this and put way too much tension on the hips, especially if they're going to any kind of stretching. This is where you're going to, you know, possibly snap them or pop them up. But even if he was in a brace, let's say like this, look at how you can get in there and still work with just the movement of the his sit bones into his pelvic girdle. So with this, I can move the knee this way. So his leg is more, quote, in a standing. And I also can go right underneath the patellas, which are and the condyles. Well, the patella is your kneecap. I can also, now I don't do any kind of ever joint compressions. Notice how I'm twisting and pushing, but moving the hip back. So again, I'm not putting any kind of direct pressure or joint compressions. I'm rotating. But see what he's learning how to do, and this is one thing that the whole objective with the SPNL is your kneecap should be able to cross midline. And his does this, and it tucks the hole. So he's not used to that balance. Now, speaking of that balance, this is where it's a nice time too to give a foot contact. And so when you do that, even though he's not bearing weight, he's still getting the feedback, or I can do it on my arm the way he's doing it, of that movement. If you do get it, you can get almost a sticky pad and see how he's learning how to rotate his ankle off of just from the hip work. So again, I'm kind of... So I can do it down here with the knee long, or I can go here where it'd be more of a pre-crawl. I know. And when I do it too, I'm really but subtly pushing him into the table. So it's not just this is a roll versus that kind of roll. And I can do this to you so you can feel it as well. So now what he started to do is now I can pull the knee and he's got extension. But this is the motion that most kids with special needs don't have. And so they try and rotate or roll over through the head or through the upper shoulders for momentum versus the ability to rotate and move. Because one of the things that's not happening again with Austin, and I don't mean to be picking on him when I say stuff like that, notice when he rotates, his foot isn't rolling with it. It wants to stay straight because the way he's set up. So by doing these lessons, that's why it helps him, because even though he might not be capable of doing something, his system knows the movement. So see how I can start rotating and see his foot learns to roll on the table. So that's a way of looking at the same movement from all the different directions. And we didn't even cover too how, again, he's learned to nicely keep the arms over and balance through the the chest cavity even. Elephant. I was telling Austin, I didn't see any elephants in South Africa. I only saw monkeys. Ooh, 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 monkey. So in the same position now, what you can start to do too is to almost lift the tailbone. Now it's impossible to lift the tailbone. I can't go in there and lift it. But what I'm doing here again is I'm in and I'm just pushing back up into the hips. But if you notice right away off the feet and stuff, this is crawling. This is going up the staircase, you know what I mean? This is climbing the stairs. This is rock climbing, where the pelvis now is rotating in this kind of, so before we were doing this kind of rotation, and now I want the pelvis to so the hips learn to go up and draw the legs long. So my thumb's there to guide, but most of the effort is being done through my forefingers. And as I do it, I'm bringing the knee down. I can bring his, same thing, I can go into that rotation but pushing up. So I can start combining the two moves as I'm bringing to the foot to the floor. Or I can go where the knee goes long and the movement goes up the back, or he can go down here where the knee's down. So again, too, if he was in a brace, much more gentler, but see how you can still go in there and facilitate the movements, even though it's not as dramatic. Now again, when I'm going to work with the foot here and the knee in relationship to the hip. Now again, most people are taught that it's like a joint compression. It's not really that. What I'm doing again, so see, you don't have to know the anatomy when I say where the patella is. The patella again is the kneecap, but there are spaces in the knee. So, and there's, depending on who you're working on, there's just nice little spaces for the thumb. So what I'm doing though is I'm pushing in, and rotating. But in a nice, soft, gentle movement, because I don't want the hip to, any kind of a pop. As he wiggles, woo! But you can bring down the foot more back with this, or you can bring the foot over here. You can bring the foot here. Now here's more of a force where you're going to feel where he wants to tuck the femur. So I'm not bringing his leg, quote, up to standing. Like if it was me, I could go here and bring my foot up to standing. That's not something, and it's not beneficial for him. So why? So now I'm going to come over here again to that femur. Same kind of conversation of bringing the foot into standing. Again, if I'm going too fast, A, you can rerun the tape, or B, So I'm just here, but what I'm trying to say is literally I could do a half hour of just the one movement, so don't feel. So I'm coming up here into the femur. So I'm not going where there's going to be more tension. I'm going right where the groin meets. I'm here underneath, and I'm just rotating again into the hip, but my intention still is that tailbone, how it presents to the table. And also what's nice though is how his chest cavity can go nice and long. It's hard to do when he's going into inflection. When he wants to tuck it in, then just wait for him to settle. But this is really good for the chest cavity as well, to float the ribs. And if you want to do it reverse, you just grab his whole bum, and I'm kind of pulling as I rotate, but my hand's here over the hip joint, so I'm not pulling like this. It's, again, and this would be like climbing onto a bed. You're bringing the knee up and you're coming onto here. So I can, now that he's changed positions, I'm just changing my position, but the same kind of thing. But here, probably can show it a little bit better, but notice what he's doing here. So you've got it where it's the hip. So what I'm doing here though, is seesawing the knee over the knee and then back. But when I do that, I'm pushing back up into the pelvis. because this is going to all fours, and then this is going to sit up or stand. What? Is that funny? Is that funny? What's so funny? If you want to do it from this way now, after the hips have been worked on, same thing, you're holding the knee, and now you're working on ankle rotation into the knee. So my finger is on the top of the knee here, giving it a little bit of pressure. So again, he's feeling standing. He's getting pressure into, and see how I twist and push through that foot. And he's just, see, he naturally wants to play with me. So he's wiggling his foot off it. I know. You feel your foot? It doesn't have to be perfect 90-degree angle. Again, this is more joint compression, but see, it's not functional. When the heck are you going to stand like that other than an AFO? You're hiking, you're doing all of this, your foot needs to move. And also, for your foot to move, that's what's going to do everything else, to rotate, for you to balance. So now I'm going to do the reverse, is I'm rotating the foot. Again, I still have my fingers up here, and bring them down to the table. And with this, a lot of variation. I want the heel to go on this side and this side. If you have a little baby and they can't do this, I'm telling you, guaranteed developmental delays, just from looking at a newborn off of the heel function. And now I'm doing circles. Circles with the knee, circles with the ankle or foot. And I'm touching him, even though I have the whole foot. If you took this foot off the body and I was able to go on the bottom of the leg, that's kind of my intention with where I am twisting, if that makes any sense. Goes that. And I can do extension, but I'm not pulling. This is looking for the floor. This is going down a staircase. So again, I'm in still, I haven't changed my knee, but I'm going down. So I'll just do a couple of those over again. So I have my hand here. So this rotating and looking for extension, and going back in and going up. So that's what I'm looking for, is that tandem. And that tandem is a crucial thing. What this is allowing him also to have is sequencing. One of the biggest things you'll see with kids with special needs is the hand goes here, the foot goes there. There's no internal sequencing, even just to sit down. So again, going back to this, and now seeing how much nicer now the hips present, and how his foot presents to the floor just from doing all of that. Do you see the difference? So the foot's not kind of flopping around. So here's this movement. See, he nicely goes right to the floor. So what can happen here is kids that when they haven't learned the crawling, is they haven't learned to push off their toes. So now that his foot is nice and is available, I'm just working on the toes coming over the floor. And I'm just looking to see if I can catch him where he'll start to push off on the floor. But see, if he can push off with the toes, again, that'll take the tension off the hips. But now that he came this way, I can work on just the placement of the foot here. But notice, even on with the foot, I can grab the knee and go into the hip and help him transfer weight. What? What? Do I have to teach you now how to say monkey? Ho, 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 ho. Monkey. Wah, wah. I do a bad monkey. I do much better elephants. Elephants. So now I can keep the foot down, just taking advantage that he's checked out for a little bit. Same thing, and see again, not so much the wag of the tailbone, but how the hip is coming down into the table. I know. But I want the foot to roll over. People don't realize my hand going here, my body, my hand going here, my elbow. Your body parts need to roll on the table, not go like this and over. That's where you break stuff. It's just too much tension. There's no fixed angles on a human being, so everything should have that rotation, just like my hands do. So now that he's here, he's tired, same movements, but you can just do just such nice little detailed. But half of what you're doing here is again looking at my hand. See how my hand transfers weight. See how my arm transfers weight. This should be my knee to my foot. This transfer, this should happen through every body part. So what happens when there's abnormal stresses, that transfer can't happen. So now that he's, quote, relaxed, loose, however you want to look at it, this is when you want, see how I'm going up with the knee, and what this is like a giant seesaw. So the weight normally is here. So for him, when the feet are too heavy, for him to lift up, that's where the tension is in the hips, is teaching him how to transfer the weight from here to here like this, versus boom, let me lift. So again, I'm just pushing in here, but as I push, I lift with the leg. Now here, again, you can rotate a little bit, but again, the difference of just rotating with the knee stationary versus any kind of synchronizing, or however you want to look at it, that it's just more bang for the buck. But until the surgery, and since we're going for surgery, to sit here, well, I mean, already look at the difference now in the leg. You know what I mean? That you can get a nice straight leg. But the objective would not be to, quote, stretch the leg out at this point. But see there, right there, how he has to lift through the hips. And that's what we've been trying to teach him. But again, hopefully with the way they'll do it, that some of that conversation will subside or change. Coming underneath here, I'm looking for the transfer of weight. So it looks like I'm just lifting, but this is a lift. What I'm doing is rotating, stretching the pelvis through this side. But see the wag of the tailbone. Watch the seam of the pants. That's the whole thing that I'm talking about. But that's what you have to do when you walk. As my husband likes to say, my kids' tails were cut off at birth, but that function of the tailbone is very important. And people really overlook that. So when people, in a sense, have a stick up their butt, you know what I mean? They're just very tight in personality. They're very rigid in their thinking because they can't move the bone function through the pelvis.